Okay. Okay, I'm all set.
Okay, all right. So let me see what time it is. So we're aiming for like 55 minutes-ish. All right. I'll try to keep track too, but if I don't, just remind me.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay.
Have a great show.
This?
All right, thank you.
I had it so that I had exit full screen, gallery view.
Gallery
That's
view.
better. Oh,
yay.
Okay.
And
now I see more me, and I don't see gallery, but I guess I don't have to see him. But hi.
He's gonna go away anyway.
Yeah, I'll disappear.
Okay.
You got it.
I'll do that now. We're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should I just start when you?
Yep, we'll go here. I'll count it off for you in 3, 2, 1.
Hi. Welcome to the Witching Hour. Perfect. My name is Patti Negri. I am a psychic, medium, and quote-unquote good witch. I am coming to you from the shade of the Hollywood sign. You might know me from my regular appearances on Ghost Adventures or from my book, Old World Magic for the Modern World. But this is the Witching Hour. What is the witching hour, you may say? Well, that is the time of day when the veil between the worlds is the thinnest and magic happens. It's usually kind of in the middle of the night, about 3 a.m., but right now it is whenever you are listening to this podcast. And this witching hour is actually to shine a light and remind you how amazing you are, how powerful we human beings can be when we don't give away our power to other people, to limiting belief systems, to fear, to just about anything we can think of. And every week I'm going to bring you my lifetime of spiritual experiences, education, and the paranormal directly to you. I'm going to interview amazing leaders and experts in their field from all over the world. Thought-provoking, entertaining, and informational chats with people who are the absolute best in their field. And this week is absolutely no exception. I am proud and honored to have somebody I can actually call a dear friend and a co-worker, and I must, for those of you fans, a fellow Ghost Adventures alumni. But let me introduce you to the beautiful Voodoo Bloody Mary of New Orleans. Hey, Mary.
Hello, how are you and everyone out there? I hope today is well.
Yes, today is beautiful. It's a good day. It's we are still, I want to forewarn everybody, we are still in quarantine. So where this usually is a studio show, we are all separate, the producer, the director, each of us are directors. So you might hear dogs bark, cats meow, phones ring. We'll just get to the best of this as we can. It's real life.
We must stop if we hear a dog bark.
Yes, because neither of us have a dog. No.
Well, no, my dog died, and we just cremated him yesterday, so I've been very low energy and sad. So if he barks, that means he's already come back. So we stop what we're doing.
And we talk to your puppy.
Yes, we talk to Grady.
Okay,
that's the deal.
To Grady.
I have another one, but we'll know her bark the difference.
Yeah, I lost my Princess Dora this year, February, and still, it's so hard. When they're your babies, it's so hard. But I see her all the time. She's around. It's just, as much as it's great to have your spirit pet, it's just not quite the same.
You can't hug them. You can't.
Yeah, you can't hug them.
Trip over them or whatever else they do to you.
Let me tell everybody a little bit about you. Again, we met, I actually studied with you over the years when you'd come to LA. She is an amazing voodoo priestess. She has when you go to New Orleans, because everybody needs to go to New Orleans, go to her shop. She has a beautiful voodoo occult shop. She has an amazing haunted museum, and you do tours, right?
Do tours, workshops, classes, seance, all of those things, ghost hunts, and city tours, cemetery. I love my cemeteries. I'll take you to those. I think you'd learn a lot about the living in a town from how they treat their dead. And New Orleans has unique cemeteries for this country. We're such a displaced European colony that things are just different architecturally and beyond. And they're very active cemeteries in many ways. So they like the visitors.
Why do you think that is? Why? I mean, you are. I went there October, as you know, for the Vampire Ball. We were both part of. But I noticed, again, the energy is such a high vibration, such a different vibration. I've been high vibration places, low vibrations. It's not like Sedona or different.
No.
What makes New Orleans New Orleans?
Well, the spirit of place, which I think has a lot to do with the river and the fact that underground rivers are absolutely everywhere, still
Mm.
embracing, in the whole town. So you're walking on water while you're there, for one. There's a lot of dead people. We had the highest mortality rate in North America for nearly 2 centuries, and we were no strangers to plague and pandemic. Yellow fever, cholera, dandy fever, many of the malarian types, and a variety of other things. So there was a quick death rate and turnover. So lots of cities of the dead that surround the cities of the living and are kind of, part of it. Um, the vibration also has to do with the fact that we're on a direct ley line to Cairo, Egypt, as many of the mouths of rivers are connected. And we're also on a direct ley line to the, holy grounds of the Tibetan mountains and such. So we're strategically placed in that way too, which brings energies from all over in. I need to go do some work to pull that more in now, because the whole world is kind of flatlined a little bit right now. It's slowed down. So that, of course, has slowed down the vibration here and made it feel a little more ghost town than I like.
Yeah.
I like a little
So
energy.
that's fascinating to me. I didn't know that about the ley lines to Egypt and all these sacred and magical places. I don't know much about that, ley lines and getting into geography and energetic in that direction. That's fascinating. So,
Yeah,
so
definitely a connection to all the great river basins. You have that special energy. And the
yeah.
Mississippi, she brings everyone's energies from the whole country down, flowing, through here. And that's all a part of it. The fact that we have some old buildings and people keep coming back. My simple explanation is we are a port town on the physical plane, and we are a portal on the spiritual plane.
I like
So
that.
this doorway that brings in the living also brings in and removes. It's a cycle of dead living, dead living, dead living. And the normal smells wafting through the air of Creole foods that are cooking, that sacred smells, those entice spirits as well and keep them here. All of it. Probably the humidity, they have to stick here too.
They're just sticky. That's fabulous. So I love that. We're going to get into the whole magical and voodoo side in a minute and go anywhere you want to go. But when you just said ley lines, it just hit to me. And again, this is not one of my really expertise areas or anything. And I don't know that you guys are known for that, maybe not at
Yeah.
all. Those areas are also
Stuff that I know, stuff that I've been pulled into in my research over the past 30 years, I guess,
So over that 30 years or the history of New Orleans, have you guys had like ET stuff, extraterrestrial stuff, or is that not really part of your cosmology?
I'm not personally that into that. I'm not against it. I will, salute Star Tribe as well as the next person, but I don't really focus on that as much. There was a MUFON director that I worked with because he had some research that overlapped my paranormal research, but I don't much dwell into the alien aspect of it. But I do know many people that do. And even if I can't say this from firsthand information, I would still almost be able to guarantee you if the alien encounters are here, they are the kind that come from under the water.
Interesting.
And I am way much more of an interdimensional person than an outer dimensional person, that the many different dimensions that collide here, which are constant, some of which may be thought of as alien on other research, I think are more just, through the dimensions. So we do have our share of cryptids, which some people like to push into the alien aspect of the paranormal. I don't necessarily put them there. Just again, that interdimensional, multidimensional type of flow is definitely here, especially at real liminal spots. Or as you mentioned before, liminal times of the day or the year, the crossroads times, the witching hour, recently, in my opinion, only recently, people said 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. That's in the last, well, by very recently, I mean like in the past 10 years.
Right. I agree. Didn't it used
Most
to
of
be
that,
like
it was
midnight?
midnight.
It was
It was
midnight.
midnight before that.
So
But
why do we think that is? I think so
I don't know.
too.
People are staying up later. I have no
I
idea, but
get.
they pushed it. But in reality, I'm sure it's both, but in reality, something in voodoo spoken of as the 4 moments of the sun really work in my book. I'm dusk, dawn, noon, and midnight. Those are the crossroads times of the day, just as the solstice and the equinox are the crossroads times of the year. And then on top of that, you go to the liminal spots themselves that are alone, and you do that all together at the time of year, and at the spots, then you got it. You know, you've got it going on. However, I went to do a lot of work, was it 10, 15, 15 years ago, I guess. I was doing a lot of paranormal slash spiritual research. I do what I call voodoo paranormal, but it's also from a spiritual edge to sacred sites all over Europe. And I was very surprised when speaking to a few people that had some knowledge about it. They said high noon. And high noon is one of those moments of the sun. So no one here would claim high noon, but I've done high noon tours for a long time to see the different kinds of spirits that are there. And sometimes I find it fascinating that there are different spirits in the same locations at dusk, at dawn, at midnight. You know, that they're not always the same. You know, it's like a different commuter train is letting them off, you know, and taking them back. It's different encounters at different times as well, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
you know?
well, it makes sense. Like, we're different people. The people hanging around downtown at noon are different than the people hanging around
Our
downtown
shift
at midnight.
changes.
Our
Shift change.
I love that.
And once in a while, you know, I might, even though my shift is usually, you know, from 12 to 3, you know, or midnight to 2, I might be out there at dusk. And I really love that golden hour.
Yeah.
You know, the magnetic polarity of the earth changes at that time. The light changes. Everything is in a way that you can finally see. It's like summer waking up. Not only is there a beauty, a physical beauty to admire, but there's a different form of energy that starts there that can energize you. So I really do love dusk. And then you go to a crossroads or a liminal spot at that time period, and you can learn more, you know, become part of more.
I agree. I do a lot. That's the wee bit of the fairy that I fast. They live at the edge of day, the edge of night. So I do a lot of my magical works at that time too. You know, it is, you feel the magic there. So speaking of voodoo, going into voodoo, voodoo, a lot of people talk about, you know, misunderstanding witchcraft. I think they even more misunderstand voodoo. So you, from a, you know, born and raised New Orleans girl, a priestess yourself, kind of, it can, for my like lay people or people who know the just more spiritual end or witchcraft, explain the difference. What is voodoo? What isn't voodoo?
In the past, I would say 15 years, it's become a lot less feared. A lot of witches or practitioners are trying to learn more and dabble in it, or actually even just mix it in and say, you know, they've always done it. But the hoodoo element, the craft part of it, has become more known and accepted. The voodoo part of it is still a little more confused. And of course, these days, people like, you know, white people. Oh my God, why are white people? Every religion has every color, you know? That's the way it goes. And in New Orleans, as soon as it had voodoo, shortly after, it had white people. Just as many white, if not more, some say, at some times of history. And that a lot of that stuff, strangely enough, is recorded. And the reason, the bad but yet funny reason why it's recorded on, let's say, who was at this ritual, a lot of times had to do with right at the verge of the Civil War, when they were really trying to put laws to stop Black and white people from being together. We never went that way. You know, we did it anyway. So we had to hide and go do rituals under the guise of a fish fry or something like that. They had to go hide to do these rituals or pretend they were doing something else. So if they got raided, then you had names and numbers of people, what they did, where they were from. And it was a fascinating mixture of all socioeconomic levels, all races, all sexes, mainly female though. But it showed you how you had the, you know, the fancy woman from the upper scale and the street woman from over here, and the, you know, this free person of color and one slave, and you were not supposed to mix. And we did not like segregation here. Segregation was kind of slowly but surely superimposed on the community after the Americanization, early 1800s. But you would have all stratas of people dabbling in an aspect of it, either at rituals or, of course, going knocking on the door in the middle of the night to get help with their court case, their lover, their this nor their that. Everyone dabbled in a little bit of it, and it grew along side by side with the culture. So for here, all different races and socioeconomic levels practicing in a bit of voodoo was the history of it. Maybe not so in other areas, because in other areas everything was hidden and behind closed doors, and it wasn't really hidden here. New Orleans just had a different attitude about things. And the mysticism was built into the swamps and the creativity of it and the music that was all around. And this is a very unusual city, I guess, especially for this country. You know? But yeah, voodoo came with the slave trade. New Orleans slaves had a place to gather on a day off of Sunday where they would do open rituals and music and dances and set up market to sell foods and wares and talismans and things. So it became the first tourist spot in the South because this music and this dance and these things that were for sale, they weren't allowed everywhere. So it was fascinating to people to learn and to trade and to see this. They, of course, thought it was shocking as they watched these people dancing themselves into the frenzy as the spirit was entering and the eyes rolling back. They watched in shock, but soon they kind of shed a little bit of layers of clothes and joined right in. To me, that is the explanation of what's different about New Orleans. People still do things here they wouldn't do at home. They let their hair down. They dabble into something that's supposed to be taboo, like voodoo. People that were, born again Christians, Baptists, whatever they were in the rest of the country, when they come here, they might take a voodoo tour because it was part of the culture. It's not like they were dabbling in something occult against their religion, and they get to learn,
That's
a little.
great.
I'll learn a little.
Yeah,
not everybody that talks out there knows what the hell they're talking about. That has definitely changed a lot lately. People, that shouldn't be doing voodoo tours or voodoo things, haven't gone through any real training, will still say some, no offense, Hollywood stuff.
Yeah.
That
and then take
movies.
it.
Same thing with witchcraft. It's always the evil. But, as much as I've been the defender of voodoo and you've been the defender of witchcraft as a good witch, they're not all good.
No, they're not all good.
But that's humans. That's not
human.
like witches or voodoos. That's humans.
Humans
are not all good.
And whatever, and Christians aren't all good.
Right, just humans. You don't have to blame the religion. It's human nature.
What
Catholics, oh my God. So the it's the different religions would, of course, they have people in power. They shouldn't be in power. They want power just for themselves. Those types of people shouldn't be the priests, priestesses, ministers, whatever it is, in charge, because that's really bad role modeling. But yet that's the way it is. People that are out only for themselves. And it's hard. It's hard. And when things have been hidden from you your whole life or told were taboo, people just dabble, and now with the internet, they'll get half a spell here and half a spell there, and they'll start doing things or half a ritual,
They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I know. But what I like about the little bit I've known with voodoo is that, again, my whole thing is about people taking their power back. It's empowering. You guys create your life. You take your power back. You work with the spirits, you work with the gods, you work with whoever you
don't have to take it away from someone else. That's the hoodoo thing that everybody got wrong out there. All the people teach you how to trick somebody up and trick them up to get your power that way. That's temporal. Find your own connection and power. Don't have to steal it from others. Go to the source.
Go to the source. I agree. So we agree completely. So yes, I think the misconceptions on voodoo, hoodoo are the same as witchcraft and the practice of the craft. So
because it makes better movies to talk about the crazy one over there that cursed everybody in this. I mean, it's more interesting. It's more fascinating. The voodoo doll, for example, and I've been teaching voodoo doll making for close to 30 years now. You know, it's not just making a doll and putting it out and selling it. You know, there's a lot more to it. And it's not about sticking a pin in to harm someone. However, sympathetic magic and, you know, that type of thing is part of it, but it's usually an oversimplification. Pin, chest, ow. You know, it could be more, but pins, sharps, daggers, nails, those types of things to release power and energy in an area, to sign deals between people and tribes, to, you know, like acupuncture, to move energies through, as well as maybe to harm, but a pin in the head to affect thought, to remember something, in a heart to stimulate movement. There's so many ways, and you don't have to use the pins at all or the sharps, but you can. And you can use them for harm, and people do use it for harm, and more of them do it that way because of what the Hollywood and the movies and the books and such have dictated, instead of it being a healing effigy, which is what we hope it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I made it through you or somebody else, my first little puppet, not quite a voodoo doll, but to me, it's for healing. You have a headache, exactly what you just said.
Yeah, I think you were in the class that
I think I
did
was in your class that we did it, because we put swamp grass in it. I remember, because I'd never had swamp grass before. It's like,
well, we had moss, which is what we made the bottle out of. But then I also had it's a small aquatic plant, the smallest aquatic plant in the world, that's called moon grass. Yeah. And it goes it's through the swamps at certain times of the year, and it reflects brilliantly. So there was one swamp magic class that also brought some of that.
Yeah.
Some mud and some this and some that and some gator toes or whatever.
Yes, we had gator toes. I remember that. Again, that's what's so magical. You eat the meat and keep the toes. Ew.
That's too little to get any meat off of, but yeah,
okay.
That's probably, but I carry them because the piece is part of the whole, and it's the power, and the gator is older than man. And if you want to tap in on some of the very beginnings in the creative flow, the gator's your guy and helps you take a ride to the other side. And, you know, I work a lot with the gator. So the energy or magic that was here already in Louisiana, in the swamps, that the local Native American Indian tribes were reverent to, was taught to the African slave. Both peoples were used as slaves at the beginning, and they intermarried, both bodies and souls, just at the very beginning, because the Native Americans didn't stay as slaves long. But they did at the beginning, and it was some of their drum beats and dance beats mixed in with the African beats. So it was that spirit of place of the swamp energy, swamp magic, mixing in with the African voodoo that came directly here from Africa, not by way of Haiti first and then here, which is what people seem to think, but first generation, straight from Africa to here. Different tribes what came here, and there were just a little bit more freedoms here and a lot of ways to acquire your freedom. So we had a very strong, very well off free people of color class here in the 1700s, many of which who owned property, businesses, spoke and read English and well, you know, Creole and English. So there was just a different thing coming here, and the Americans were scared to death of it when they first got here. They didn't understand anything that was going. There was an autonomy for the slaves. There was days off. There was interracial relationships. And there was voodoo, you know, and above ground burial. They didn't like any of it. So there was like this distinction between the Catholics and the Creoles and the Protestants and Americans, you know, and part to do with religion and part to do with culture, you know. But they also were afraid enough of voodoo that they felt they needed the help from it. So they too dabbled from the different sides. So everybody had it, and the words were in the regular conversation. It was built in the foods, the customs, and definitely in the music. You know?
So that's interesting about the Native Americans too. So is that magic mixed in a little too?
Oh, absolutely.
The drum beat,
absolutely.
So
you'll have that in all New World forms of voodoo. But however, let's say Haiti, for example, the Arawak and other Indians the Caribbean Indians, it was a more aggressive needs in those areas through revolution, through fighting, you know, to get any sense of self. Here, it wasn't as aggressive, and it just kind of blended naturally because there wasn't the need necessarily for revolution here in order for, you know, some freedoms to occur.
Yeah.
So, slavery is always oppression, but it is wrong for people to not to think it was the same everywhere. Marie Laveau, my little Marie doll's here. Say hi.
Yes,
Marie
hi.
Laveau, she was a free woman of color. She was born free. Her mother, I think, was a slave who was freed. Her grandmother was a slave who was freed. She inherited a house from her grandmother who got her own freedom, and her mother and her, they were both marchand, which was merchant woman. They worked down at the French markets. They had little businesses. So they were like a mercantile class. And Marie Laveau, she had a slave or two. And it's not true that she only had slaves to free them. Today, people are trying to superimpose today's history and outlook on top of the history of the day. No, she had one or two servants here and there, and there were slaves. You'd feed them, you'd take care of them, you'd hospitalization for them. So she had, a slave. And free people of color sometimes had slaves. And once in a blue moon, a slave might have had a slave to lessen their work level and use them as trade-in to purchase their freedom. So it was a whole different thing going on here. And yes, we could look back and judge, and we do know that slavery is always oppression, but it was the system in which people worked in. And that, the Civil War, the approaching Civil War, more and more freedoms are being ripped away. And the Americans especially were putting more rules on top of things, like not being able to socialize in public, black and white, unless it was your slave, So we know that was occurring in the sidelines just from the few rituals and goings on that were busted, that were raided on the names of the people who were there, which is a sad thing that it happened, but interesting for us to have that evidence.
That you have evidence, yeah. That's amazing to me. Wow. Drinking water, sipping water. No.
Yes,
and both of us in chalices. Yes.
Put it in a glass, trying to be good.
We both have our work is both romantic. That's why I like it over so many other belief systems. We have more fun and it's more romantic.
It's hard. I mean, it can be very hard. Like I have to take a couple of days off, but I have people calling and, they're having troubles in their life, but I haven't been able to grieve my dog. It was kind of like a week whirlwind of horrors, and so we went in for a little operation on Monday, which didn't work. And so he didn't necessarily come out. And then yesterday I was so torn about, I know people think this is weird, but I was very torn about burning him. I don't like the idea of cremation. Why? I felt bad. I was apologizing left and right if he felt the burn. I was just I wanted to bury him, and nobody had a hole big enough, whatever. I don't know. I just didn't want that. So yesterday was so draining on me, and I'm crying. I'm all puffy, but I'll be happy when I get his bones back.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about cremation. Again, I wear my mom's bones on. It's like bones of your ancestors. I wear her ashes on my neck, and it's empowering. I've got my dog in the other room, one room over, her little case of it. So I
wouldn't let them pulverize them. I want the bones back as whole as possible.
Oh,
so
wow.
They gave me a bigger box, and they're not putting them in the blender. She didn't even think I was weird for asking. She said I wouldn't do that to my dog either. Yes, we'll just give you a Great Dane box instead of a smaller box for the pulverizing.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that was an option. That's good to know.
I said, hey, do we have to do this? Because when I got my mom back, she was cremated, even though, and my sister had found from previous people that they said to wait a week and they don't feel the burn. And the funeral home had never heard of it, but they kept her for an extra 5-7 days, whatever it was. And this was not keeping him, so I had that in the back of my mind, like, ew. But after her ashes and putting some for my sister and some for me, I did find a tooth, and I wanted a tooth, So I said, want to make sure I get it all back, and she said, you probably won't get a tooth, but you can get all the bones and things. They'll probably be burnt, but you will get them. So I should get them either today or tomorrow. And I feel bringing him home and having his little altar filled, will make me feel better, because I don't want him to feel lost out there.
No, he'll like it. My girl likes it. We got a little frame, almost like a little altar for the baby.
Right.
I've never even heard the feel the burn now. And it's like I'm horrified. Like, God,
Yeah.
oh,
If my sister hadn't told me that, I probably wouldn't have felt it.
I've never heard that, because that's their shell. I mean, yes, there's power in those bones.
But
Yes,
you wait. I mean, there's a couple of souls in you, 3 really, or more in voodoo: the soul of consciousness, the God soul, and then the animating physical shell that sometimes I think stays for 7 to 9 days, close to or whatever. Which is one reason I think why the Catholics never like to burn, and wouldn't let you do cremation until 20 years ago, not even.
Right.
So I don't know. I just felt bad. And I had a couple of visions with screaming, and this is before he died even, with things that were going on. But whatever, it's done now, but it was very stressful for a couple of days, and I just want him to come home. Now I had my cat taxidermied. I was going to bury her back there because there's a lot of altars all over my ritual backyard. You see
beautiful.
The gazebo and everything. There we go. I'll move it so you can see the gazebo.
I love it.
There it is. And my goddess statue in the middle with a snake around it and all the altars all around. Well, I was going to bury her back there, and we dug the hole and everything, and when I went to put her down, I was overcome with sadness. I couldn't do it. Stuck her in the freezer, sent her to the taxidermist. I have her bones in a little box, cleaned and perfect, and I have her shell stuffed, in my altar room. And I have one wonderful thing about that for you cat lovers out there. I got a pearl back. She had a pearl in her, just like a clam will have like a bezoar, but it was pearl, and it was shiny, and it was white, and it was like necklace, So I keep that here with me and things. And then my son's young cat, just died out of nowhere, right before all this, around COVID, actually. And I said, they said they didn't want him stuffed, but they wanted her pelted so she could pet him.
Oh.
And the bone. So I went to the taxidermist that I talked to. They're not used to doing domestics, right? They're used to doing wild game and stuff. And he fixed their bones real pretty, and I'm gonna go pick them up soon. And another perfect pearl.
Really?
A beautiful pearl. He's like, I don't know if all cats have them or just yours. He goes, but like bigger cats, bobcats, they do not have. I mean, they're shiny like a pearl, a perfect pearl. That cat was only 3 years old. Nobody knows why it died. Mine was 22, so mine was pearl and a little flattened, but I was just so happy to have that of her, because I'm very much a believer in totem animals, and to have a piece of them, whether it's a fur, whether it's a bone, to carry that with you is like a relic of a saint, a relic of an animal, for that animal energy, and your familiar's power to walk with you even after they're gone. So
yeah, that's great. I'm not sure. I have a friend, actually a client. She's had both of her dogs taxidermied, and like they're in display cases. I can't quite wrap my head around that though. Where do you have your cat?
She's in my temple room. She's at the New Orleans Voodoo altar, which is like, if my bed is on the bedroom on the other side, and that particular altar is right up to my head. So she's right by my head, and she was is my fierce protector, familiar. So she's right behind my head. So I've got my snake's bone. So I got a ghost snake here. I got a couple of snakes in a jar, my little gator in a jar. I've got her stuffed, and now I have the bones of him, and I have some previous kittens. So I have a menagerie of animals already, of ghost animals here and at the museum. One dog who's not mine. But hold up, 20 minutes left. That's all.
Thank you, the voice from the heavens.
So animals, are so important to us. They are our family, and the new name fur babies. And I know, California is very against fur of any kind, right? But, if they've passed on, if you want to have their pelt, the whole concept of people like Voodoo and anybody that's a nature-based religion, you want your totem animals, the strength, just like people wanted the hide of the hunt that they caught. It had such meaning, and the strength of your opponent. Well, this isn't the hunt. This was your companions, your children in life. And damn well I'm going to work with them and their spirits are with
Yeah.
you. When they're not with you, you're concerned. Many people have seen my mama kitty's ghost, and we'll see what's going to happen with Grady. I was most shocked to have the ghost of my snake pop up. I don't know why.
Wow.
I just didn't think of that, you know? So when it start popping up on tours and people start feeling around their necks, and somebody was coming up with the Danny? It's like, oh, Danny. Yeah, ghost snake. He's like, figures, I'm afraid of snakes. It's on my neck, you know. Then we saw like sparks of light in an S kind of shape. You know, it's like,
how
okay.
fun. Yeah, I have fur. I have mostly vintage fur or sacred fur. I think like the PETA thing, I don't get. I know they mean well, but I mean, somebody like what they used to do, throwing paint on a pelt.
Yes.
What do I talk about? Disrespect of the
my
animal.
God.
Not this is sacred. It gave its life for whatever reason. It's no. I work with fur. I have a lot of fur.
Okay.
I have.
I was going to bring the wolf pelt behind me because I wanted to be close to Grady. And 2 nights before he died, I had such an intense vision. And it was really weird. It had to do with the spirit pot that I had and a rope and pulling my other dog. I was like, there was a rope from my room by the altar all the way to the back of the house where I am now. Another reason why I wanted to be here. And I was like, pulling on the rope.
Wow.
And there the rope was my puppy, not my sick one, upside down. I was like, what the hell? And the spirit of the pot said, put it back. I was like, all right. So I put it back, and, you know, and I was walking, and all of a sudden, the most gorgeous, the most perfect, solid black wolf with like coiffed hair and her gold eyes just appeared and started walking towards me. So throw the live one back, this one. So that was like Grady's animal spirit or totem. I didn't know at the time there was a wolf bone in that spirit pot. Man who made it with me for me told me later was coming to help him cross, or releasing the wolf spirit that was within him. So it was a beautiful, yet, you know, a little confusing 2 days before the operation kind of thing. And there was another couple of parts that were even weirder. But, you know, it let me see this most magnificent wolf. And I deal with the Lukuru and the wolf spirit and that spirit of the swamps in here, that's the werewolf, if you will.
Yes.
In New Orleans, and it's got a little side part in Voodoo too. But this wolf spirit was so majestic. I mean, the most perfect wolf, and that made me feel a little better, you know, that he was being released to his original wolf self, you know?
That's right. Dogs are wolves. Dogs started out
Yeah,
wolves.
absolutely. So we all have animal totems, the ones that we choose as pets and the ones that are outside. Some people have frogs. We usually all have a totem bird too. And I had a murder of crows follow me. Crow's my totem bird. And when I was going to the operation and, you know, trying to get Grady in the van on, Monday morning, you know, there was like waiting for my husband, you know, to come down. There was 1 and then 2 and then like 8, and they all got in a tree too ahead of crows screaming. I'm like, murder crows, go away. Do not, you know, don't come take him yet. You damn it. So, you know, I can get mad at them even though I love my crows. It's like, shut up. But yeah.
I'm a crow girl too. I've been talking to him. I would walk to school when I was a kid. I'm not going to do it now. I'm really good at crow sound all the way to school and back. We sometimes feed them now, but they come all the time. I love crows.
We had a lot of crow energy here since freaking COVID. I mean, they were some early, I may have said this on our last show. I've said it to somebody, but there were several weird things going on at Mardi Gras. I had gotten, I believe, COVID in November in England, which no one knew what it was then.
Yeah.
And when I heard stuff was coming around Halloween, I mean, Mardi Gras, I was like, I don't want to be in that. I'm going to be wearing masks and double masks and basket trays up my nose, you know, and I did all that. But there were like these 2 weird deaths of people getting squashed between floats.
Wow.
The week before Mardi Gras, which we have parades every night. And they died in the same way, which was really weird and crushed. And we knew that was the end of the multi-chain floats, because it was always the ones that had 2 or 4 connected. So that happened. I said, oh, that's a sign of something. And then 2 times down typical crowded Bourbon Street, not Bourbon Street now, but Bourbon Street at Mardi Gras, there was like from what I understand, I didn't see it, but I know people that were experienced it, like 1,000 crows just rushing down the street, flying in a
Wow.
big, huge murder. In the middle, not in a forest, not in a tree, but down Bourbon Street in the thick of it. Once there, and then they ended up across the street from my shop in Congo Square. And then it happened again, both right the day before these people got squashed. And all of this is like, this is something big is coming. And of course, that's when COVID was being transferred to a lot of people through the crowds at Mardi Gras, right? You know,
Wow. Yeah.
through all of that. So the crows have been on top of this one, and they have been everywhere screaming their little heads off ever since Mardi Gras. They're quieting down now, except for bringing him to the, you know, the vet on
Mm.
Monday.
That's
And
so
they didn't.
sweet. One of the sweetest, wildest thing, I had never seen this before. Again, I'm pretty in the city, even though I live by the lake. Um, a crow had passed. I don't know if he was roadkill or what, but he was in the middle of the road. My neighbor, he was surrounded by his crow friends
Oh,
crying and
aw,
screaming. And I heard
aw,
crows are so loyal to each other, to their
aw.
carter, to the, and I was just like, oh God, they're mourning their little baby in the middle of the street. And
Was
they
it
were,
a baby?
it wasn't, no, I don't think it was a baby. It was just another
Yeah.
crow that had bit the dust. And it was just like, wow, look at this. Look at, you know, if people could sometimes show their emotions and feelings like that, it was just
Aw.
wild.
We found a crow in the graveyard one night. Again, right before all this, the beginning, it was the beginning of the year, maybe January. It had been, I guess, attacked by a dog or something. Its wing was just like, you know, barely even attached. And you know, we grabbed it up and brought it home on the during the ghost hunt. And I have a Birdman we work with, and I brought him over there, and he did a lot with some glue and some tape, and he rehabilitated him for a couple of months, and then we set him free in another graveyard where there's all these crows. So you know, we take care of them if we can, and they give us messages. And so you know, you have a totem bird and you have a totem pet, and you have, you know, sometimes I remember, you know, this turtle kept showing up at the door, not the same one, but turtles kept popping up everywhere I go. And I'm not that deep I'm in the city, you know, there's not a
Yeah.
lot of just running around. And so you have to pay attention to that animal that comes into your life for a short time to see what they're going to teach you. And you must, of course, be knowledgeable about what they are prey to and what they are preying on, because that teaches you how to handle a situation or in your life or your, you know, at the time. So we have totem animals that'll be with us always, and we have specific totems that are there for, I don't know, a year, 6 months, a short period of time to help deal with the situation. And then you can also become your own werewolf if it's a wolf. But you know what I mean? Like you can become the animal to understand it, and they become you, and that's how you become one with your totem animal and use them for healings and protection and so many other things as you hopefully take care of them too. And by the way, something we were saying before, I just realized, like I have a wolf pelt, but I also adopted a wolf and gave money at a sanctuary. You
Mm,
know, there's a balance that you can do,
yes.
you know?
I'm just still in love with what you said. I mean, I work with the animals, animal energy, animal totems, spirits, all the, but what you just said about what they pray and what they pray to, I pray on,
Right.
gives you your lesson. I've never thought of it like that.
You have, though, that's how you do that, the shamanistic aspect of
I
it.
just
For
look at,
I
I
guess
always
I'm
just looked at
a
their
voodoo
attributes
shaman
and
more than
they're,
anything else. You got
yes,
to like become them, just go into their personality. They've got to become you, you know, like for you to really, really connect and heal and teach. Absolutely. Yeah, they could teach you quite a lot, because each, the way they deal with how they hunt or how they don't hunt, how they're hunted, all of those things can teach you something. And then to become one with them, it's part of the art of invisibility, which is sometimes
mm,
misconstrued as the you know, transforming into the animal, because you're becoming one with them as you're doing this vibration connection. You know, you might disappear if you vibrate out, and
yeah,
then people think you've turned into the animal. So that's one of the excuses or explanations of changeling spirits a lot of times, but you can connect with them deep.
yes. Yes,
and
I just
learn.
looked a new way to look at it. So thank you. For anybody
Oh,
who
you're
just
welcome.
turned in, you are listening to The Witching Hour. I am Patti Negri, and we are talking to my beautiful friend, the Voodoo Mary of New
Queen.
Orleans. So the Voodoo
I,
Queen. She is the Voodoo
I'm Voodoo
Queen, and
Queen
she is
Bloody Mary. There we go.
okay. That's
Uh,
how we do it. Voodoo Queen Bloody Mary. It says Voodoo Queen Bloody Mary. So you
Now,
guys
I
got it.
was Bloody Mary probably before I was Voodoo Queen. The name had already stuck. It wasn't, because of the blood, but that was a nickname I had, and I had used that name as a television name for a long time. And it's not my main priestess name, but there's a name that you identify as, and there's a
Yes.
private, quiet name that you work within your with your other people. So one is a public name and one is a private name. But the queen is the high title that you get in New Orleans voodoo, and previous queen had passed. Before she passed, it was arranged, and there was different forms of apprenticeships and such over the years, and then that came to me. And then I'm Voodoo Mambo Asagwe in Haitian voodoo at the
And what's that?
request of Aloha. Haitian voodoo from Haiti. So
But
Mambo Asagwe is the title of like the high priestess / bishop in Haitian voodoo. So that's a series of initiations and various rituals that occur. And then there was different things to accept the title as queen. So I have both of those, and I'm working also in some Congo religions on the side, as well as I'm twinned with a Celtic witchcraft tradition from Lord Orion, and I'm also got a night priest title and some Tibetan healing work. So there's all kinds of affiliated, and of course, born and raised Catholic because that's the New Orleans girl thing.
yeah, well, it all sounds very shamanic for one, like you're saying, very.
Well, I'm very connected with there's so much nature spirit stuff
Mm.
in voodoo that people don't realize. If you want to call them an elemental or an orisha, depending on what tradition you're coming from, or even a fairy. But there's life in an animistic belief system. Everything has life: the trees, the waters, everything that is around you. The spirits within them are what do the healing. So as you're communicating with the spirits and listening to Le Grand Zombie at the edge of the bayou, as a song says about Marie Laveau, you're learning direct from the spirits themselves, from the nature. And then, of course, it's exalted ancestors and spirits that may or may not have ever been in the flesh as we know it, that are guides and guides. And so they came from over here, mixed in what was already here to create New Orleans voodoo, which is not the same as Haitian voodoo or the rest, and has been forgotten by most because more traditionally set up religions like Santeria start coming here in the 1970s, and people would initiate in that, and then other traditions bring their traditions here. But no matter where you're from or whatever tradition you decide to choose as your path, you must always, always honor the spirit of the tradition, of the spirit of place of where you are, where you live, where you're from. You must put
I
that
agree
into it.
wholeheartedly. So if somebody was interested in this, again, anybody listening to this is interested somehow in our world of things, how would you direct them to go into a good information? I know you have books and things, but
I have many books that I have done, and I'm doing Zoom classes now on Voodoo from the Inside that I sell as bundles for the recordings, as well as I think I'm going to continue on doing them live. It's definitely different than what I'm used to. I'm used to people coming, and I have like crossroads experiences that I do on Fridays with a small group that will go to these areas, to the oak forest, to the bayou. We'll do gatherings. We'll stop at a graveyard. We'll connect with the ancestors, because I like working in the field, and I like working with feeling people too.
me too.
So in the field, and you can call it a tour, but it's an outing that we are connecting with. But now I'm doing it in the classes, and it's going quite well. I just would love people. They could go to BloodyMaryNewOrleans.com. I'm at Bloody Mary New Orleans Eventbrite.com too for the classes. We're like you. We're gonna try to do it together too.
Yes.
But I'm starting some online seances, but we do them in the flesh in New Orleans. But come to New Orleans. We need you. We need your bodies. We need your flesh here. We need to connect again as humans. But in the meantime, Zoom live, I do live parties, and I do live classes, and I guess live tours if you want storytelling and spirit connection.
Yeah. And so again, she's an amazing teacher. She's an amazing leader. Everybody check out Bloody Mary tours and everything she just said. She's a great teacher. I've studied with her. I'm speaking from personal experience. Again, we are getting close to the end. My name is Patti Negri. You are listening to The Witching Hour. You can hear us on dashradio.com, Talk X station, commercial-free radio, 80 stations of fabulousness. And also, 1 week later, you can find it on Apple, Anchor, Spotify, all the usual podcast places for listen on demand. Just look under The Witching Hour with Patti Negri. Again, I want to thank dear Bloody Mary, Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, for being such a great friend and such a great guest and so informative. And again, you're the perfect example of taking your life and creating the life that you live and that you want. Example for what people should do. It's not a funny word, but grab your life, people.
Don't let other people take your energies away. Don't give in to it. You can do so many things. It's the fears and the problems we hide away that weigh us down and destroy us. Break free, psychic readings from Patti or me, coming to different ways and rituals to cleanse. You can go out there and grab whatever you want. It's waiting for you.
You certainly can. So give your website one more time.
BloodyMaryNewOrleans.com is the easy one to remember.
Okay. And she's on all social media. Find her on social media.
Bloody Mary Nola.
Yeah. I am Patti Negri. Find me at pattinegri.com. Again, all the social medias, that gets in the middle. We thank you all for listening. Go find your magic. Magic is everywhere. You just have to look sometimes. So thank you. Thank you, Bloody Mary. Thank you, listeners. Shake it, shake it, shake it. I love that. See you next week.
Thank you, Patti.
Thank you. Bye.
New Orleans. See you in LA.
Yes.
Bye.
Yeah, that was great.
Yay.
Fantastic.
That was good. I like where we went. Did we go where you wanted to go, or did we never get there?
I just didn't know if I was going to bring up the dog or not. But
I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. Yeah, and we went into totem animals. I'm glad you did, because we all lose our babies like that.
Yeah, I know, and it's been a really rough couple of days. But I plan on being better today. Damn it.
That's it. Exactly.
Yeah. Your puppy's fine. Know that your puppy's fine.
Yes.
Death is hard on those left here. Death is hard on
I know. So it's just that weird vision, but it'll be okay.
It'll be okay.
Had a couple little happy moments last night that I saw, that I sensed. So.
Yeah, the wolf is beautiful. So.
Oh God, the wolf is so incredible.
Wow. Yeah.